Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Rashbi here with this week's Devar Torah. Rabbi Shmuel Ben Yehoshua, Rabbi Stephen Epstein. Hope you're doing well. So, this week we're going to look at Balak. That's the name of the portion. But first, I would like to do a shout out to people here at our Temple Shalom of Ontario that are working real hard. Like Bernard, for example, our president. He's always in the background. He's always doing stuff. Of course, Richard and Brigida come in, and they're getting the place all fixed up. And it's so gratifying to see our synagogue grow because of all of you. More and more people are coming in. They are choosing Judaism after being born, as I like to put it. We have people from the community that are coming in and like what they see and like what they hear. Remember that expression, it takes a village. It really does. It takes a community, a Kahal Yisrael. One of the reasons why we have to have 10 people to do certain parts of the service, to recite a sanctification, the Kaddishes, to be able to take out a Torah, for example. We need the group. The group needs to be involved. There needs to be more than one person witnessing and watching, and that's why we do that. So I will say that the success of our synagogue, of any synagogue, depends on your presence, your efforts, and your work, not just your financial contributions. So thank you to all of you that are participating. Of course, I encourage you to continue participating. And the reward is what you not only see from your efforts, but what you gain spiritually from knowing that you're bringing more of Hashem into the world, into our manifested universe, bringing more of Hashem's laws, which are about justice and righteousness. And that's really something that matters. Okay, so let's talk about Balak. Now, Balak was a warrior king. He was a Moabite warrior that the Moabites and the Midianites approached, or he conquered them, one or the other. We're not really quite sure. We have our verbiage from the Torah. Most of the sages believe that, with Israel working their way through the wilderness into settling the promised land, some of the native peoples got worried. They're seeing this army, this with all this resolve, just coming in, and we've got this land. We want to be free. We want to have our own land. We want to settle it. We want to do some great things, and they're undefeated. Every time somebody gets in their way, bam, they defeat them. And let's remember that this has been 39 years. Now, we have that first year when Moses brought Israel out of Egypt, out of bondage, and we had some occurrences, some things happen in the first, second year or so, like, for example, and this is really the key situation, when God said to Moses, send spies out if you want, let's take a look at the land and bring them back. And I guess the between the lines, the undercurrent is that now you can make plans of what you want to do and how you want to do it. A good preparation for any military venture. Well, the spies came back, gave not a real false report. They just spun the truth, gave it a negative bend, and people freaked out. They said, we can't do this. We're worried. And God said, okay, I've had it. You've tested me 10 times. You're going to remain in the wilderness, all total for 40 years. And then you will die out. The next generation that's hardier will have the wherewithal. They'll have the spine, the intestinal fortitude, if you will, to go in and conquer the land. So it's been all this time, and now we're kind of at the end of Numbers. We know that Miriam has died, and we know that the people were demoralized. Where are we going to get our water? And, instead of speaking to the rock like God told him, Moses struck the rock twice. Copious amounts of water came out, and God said, well, you didn't sanctify me. I told you to talk to the rock. You said, strike the rock. You kind of took credit for it, and you mess things up, and it, enough's enough. Apparently Moses, had some issues too. He just, whatever. So Moses and Aaron will not go into the land. That left Israel vulnerable. You had this guy Korah who tried to take over. And now you've got these people that are up to the task. And people are worried. The nations are worried. So they get this warrior king and they said, what can you do for us? And Balak said, well, obviously they're really good soldiers. That's not the way to defeat these people. The way to defeat them is to have our own ringer. They've got Moses and Aaron. Or Aaron, of course, has died. He was, he has transferred his high priesthood to his son Eleazar. And the way to do it is to have our prophet defeat them spiritually. Sends for this guy Balaam that he knew from Mesopotamia, who was, some people say, a wizard, some people say a fool, other people say he was a prophet in his own right. The discussion that the sages have, the kind of, again, the midrash, behind the scenes folklore, is that each one of the 70 ancient nations had their own prophet. This way, nobody could say, well, Israel had an unfair advantage. You liked Israel better. And God said, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll give you all a prophet. And this was Balaam. Now, in some of the commentary, and you'll find this in the Art Scroll Chumash, Balaam had the ability to know what time of the day God was judging people for their actions. And that's when he knew to curse them. So Balak sends messages to Balaam and says, I've got a task for you. And at first God says, where are you going? And Balaam says, I'm going, I got this mission. I'm going to go curse Israel. And God says, Israel is my favorite nation. They've accepted a covenant with me. Leave them alone. Well, Balak hears about that. He comes back. He goes, let me sweeten the pot for you with gold and silver and whatever else. And, he made basically Balaam an offer he couldn't refuse. So he and his two manservants start heading off to curse Israel. And God says, okay, since you didn't listen to me, I'm going to give you another chance. And here's what you're going to do. When you open your mouth to curse them, blessings are going to come out. And I'm going to put the words in your mouth. And that's basically what happens. And one of the upshots of this is that we get the prayer Matovu. That's the third blessing. Now, in his adventure, in his travel, there is a lot of us know this story, that he's going and he's on his donkey, that he's known, that has been his donkey forever, his trusted animal. And all of a sudden the donkey stops. And Balaam's like, come on, you stupid ass donkey, let's go. And the donkey turns around and starts talking to him and says, I can't. There's this angel blocking my path. And Balaam's like, what angel? And all of a sudden, now Balaam's eyes are opened. He sees this angel with a sword. So, two things. Some of the sages say, well, God can do anything. God made the donkey talk. God created this talking donkey, at the end of his 6 days of creation. Other people said, no, it was a dream. And the clue to that is that we see Balaam with, accompanied by two manservants. And during this whole affair of the talking donkey, there's no mention made of his accompanying manservants. So some people, and especially the talking donkey, it was a vision. The donkey could see, the angel he couldn't. Now, this description, the descriptive word, is the Hebrew word for obstruction, which is Satan. Later on, you guessed it, the sages are looking at this going, oh, okay, there was an obstruction, a Satan in the way. There was an angel with a sword. Okay, that must have been Satan, God's prosecuting attorney. And here we are with the whole Satan myth. And we know that other ethnic groups, other traditions have said that this is Satan, this is Satan, this is the devil, this is, God's or Satan's attempt to tempt people, and, God to tell, but in Judaism, nobody or nothing stands up to God. There's no fallen angels. God's in control. So for us to say that this is somebody that, construes against God's will, to us it's just not there. Okay. Does Satan maybe, again, as Kabbalah said, if you choose righteousness, if you choose evil, you're led on the path. If you choose righteousness, you're shown the way. Okay, well, if you want to be a jerk, then and you keep being a jerk, then we're going to let you be the jerk after so many times. Witness Pharaoh, right? Pharaoh just kept saying, no to let my people go. So God's like, okay, if that's the way you want to be, I'm going to help you do it. And that's what Satan's role is in the whole angelic system. Whether, how seriously should we take this? There's there's a real fine line here where you go from God's law, to myth and fairy tales. No, it's fairy tales, of course, no, there are no fairy tales in the Torah, but it's really an interpretation. And how do you want to interpret it? Okay. Anyway, needless to say, Balaam fails, and Israel is able to pursue conquering Promised Land. Okay, thank you very much for listening. We're going to start a Hebrew class soon. Stay tuned. Read my Sunday newsletter. That's got all the information. And thank you very much for listening.